After bandits looted our estate, my sister and I surrendered our freedom, becoming ghosts in the Duke's manor. She floated through life like autumn chrysanthemums, soft, silent, serenely detached. While I clawed for scraps in the servants' quarters, she gifted her meals to our tormentors. When winter's teeth bit deep, I fought for a threadbare blanket. She surrendered hers to a sneering maid. Fever claimed us both. I schemed my way to the crown prince's chambers, determined to warm his bed. Shameless, she hissed, yet slid effortlessly into the position I bled for. Her saintly whispers reached the prince. He claimed her as his jeweled prisoner. I became her shadow, sharpening knives, poisoning teacups, carving a path for her son's throne. When the princess moved to gut me like a fish, I crawled to my sister's jade feet. Her sigh was colder than our childhood winters. Ceylon, I warned you. Now reap your thorns. They beat my bones to dust on the flagstones. Then, darkness tore open. I awoke gasping in our looted mansion, my sister's hands still warm in mine. Back where hell began. Thank you for watching. Your support keeps these stories coming. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more captivating tales. What story should we tell next? Let us know below. Chapter 1. When I woke up, I was fighting with a maid over a white steamed bun. It's mine. Don't take it. Nonsense. I saw it first. I got it first in the garden. I saw it first. The maid and I argued until our faces were red, both of us clutching the bun, refusing to let go. As the lowest-ranking servants, we often went hungry. My stomach growled with hunger. Today, the masters feasted on delicious food, casually tossing white steamed buns to the dogs, who refused to eat them and ran away wagging their tails. My fellow maid and I, starving and clinging to each other, saw the bun and rushed forward to grab it, sparking another argument. My older sister, Si Min, heard the commotion and came over. Seeing me and the maid struggling, she frowned and said, Ceylon, stop arguing. It's just a steamed bun. Give it to her. I refused to give in. I saw it first and grabbed it first. Why should I give it to her? The maid took advantage of my distraction to grab the steamed bun forcefully. I pushed her away, and she fell to the ground, wailing hysterically while crying and shouting that she was hungry. I ignored her. I was starving myself. How could I care about her? Besides, I had gotten the steamed bun first. Yet she dared to fight me for it. I wasn't going to feel sorry for her. I broke the steamed bun in half and handed one half to my sister, saying happily, Sister, eat quickly. My sister's brows furrowed even more. She took the steamed bun but hesitated, glancing at the crying maid on the ground. I picked up the half-steamed bun to take a bite, but a hand reached out and snatched it from my mouth. I looked at Si Min in shock. Sister? Si Min didn't even look at me. She handed the entire bun to the maid on the ground and said, Stop crying. Take it and eat. Thank you. Sister Si. You're such a kind person. The maid joyfully took it, glared at me fiercely, and began to devour the steamed bun. Watching this scene, I fell into a daze. Memories from my previous life surged through my mind like a tidal wave. Si Min and I were both daughters of the Chongping Marquis. Si Min was the legitimate daughter, and I was the illegitimate daughter. My mother died early, and because my birth date was auspicious, I was raised by my grandmother and enjoyed a high status among my sisters. However, I knew my own worth, so I tried hard to please my grandmother and stepmother to maintain my position in the family. My elder sister, Si Min, was born into nobility and did not need to do anything. All the best things were brought to her. Once, while feeding the fish in the garden, I watched the koi fish below scrambling for food. My sister shook her head and sighed. Why bother competing? If you fight too hard, You'll only annoy others. She then tossed the fish food to the back of the school, allowing the fish that couldn't reach the front to eat as well. This gesture earned her praise from the noble women accompanying her, who praised her for being as calm as a chrysanthemum, neither striving nor competing. She lived up to the praise, never engaging in disputes and handling everything with composure. However, while she remained composed, the struggles fell upon me and the other concubine-born sisters. The legitimate mother had already assigned us tasks. We accompanied our elder sister to banquets. If anyone mocked her, she would remain silent, and we would have to step forward. If a dispute arose, we would have to run errands for her. Over time, everyone praised our elder sister for her noble character, while I and the other concubine sisters naturally gained a poor reputation. Our elder sister, renowned for her noble character, caught the eye of a noble lady. The wife of the Duke of Xing took a liking to her and wanted to choose her as her daughter-in-law. The Chongping Marquis mansion had fallen into decline, while the Duke of Zheng's mansion was at its peak, and the crown prince was promising and handsome. The Marquis mansion was naturally overjoyed at the prospect of this marriage. When my sister heard the news, she remained indifferent and said, "Marriage is predestined and cannot be controlled by humans." Her words proved to be prophetic. Before long, the Marquis's mansion was embroiled in a political struggle and became a scapegoat, and the entire family was confiscated. All the men were exiled, and the women were reduced to slavery. My other sisters were sold to brothels and met a sad end. My sister and I were bought by the Xingguogong mansion and became maids. In my previous life, I always thought that the Duke of Zheng's mansion wanted to save my sister, so they bought her back. And I also benefited from their kindness. As sisters and benefactors, I always put my sister first in everything I did in the Duke's mansion and planned everything for her. Even though she often stabbed me in the back, I endured it. It was not until much later that I learned that the masters of the Duke's mansion did not even know who Si Min was. When the whole mansion was raided, they immediately distanced themselves from us and quickly arranged another marriage for the crown prince. It was pure coincidence that we were bought back. By the time I learned the truth, it was too late. My sister and I were in the same boat, and I had to continue plotting for her in order to save myself. However, when the crown prince's wife targeted me, my sister scolded me, "Si Lan, I've told you before to rein in your temper. Don't compete with others or fight over things. All that arguing and fighting ends up being for nothing, and you end up sacrificing yourself. Why bother?" I cried as I grabbed the hem of her robe. "Sister, everything I've done was for you. You must save me." She shook off my hand, rubbed her temples, and sighed, "Are you doing this for me? You're doing this for yourself." I stared at her in shock. My sister continued, "Enough. Don't say another word. The truth is the truth. What's real can't be fake, and what's fake can't be real. We'll just wait quietly for the prince to investigate and clarify everything." I panicked, "Sister, if you don't plead for me, how can the prince possibly stand up for a mere maid like me? We can't just sit here and wait. I'll be killed." "Sister, Si Lan, I've told you not to be competitive or cause trouble by arguing. We must believe that justice will prevail in the hearts of people." I looked at her in disbelief. Even at this moment, she still believed that not fighting and not competing would lead to a fair result. In the beginning, she was as calm as a chrysanthemum and was able to achieve victory in the end because we sisters were fighting on the front lines and our stepmother was plotting behind the scenes. Now, in the Duke's mansion, we have no backing. If we just wait quietly and do nothing, we are simply asking for death. We must believe in the crown prince. She insisted. "Sister, save me." I was dragged into the woodshed and locked up, praying every day that she would save me. Yet she remained indifferent, refusing to intervene. In the end, I was sentenced to 100 lashes, and I died before the punishment was completed. After my death, my sister fell ill. The young master finally took pity on me and investigated the truth. Discovering that I was innocent, he scolded the young master's wife and grew even more affectionate toward my sister. What happened afterward? I do not know. I never imagined I would be reborn. In my previous life, when Si Min stole a steamed bun for the maid, I let it go for her sake. With my memories restored, I pushed Si Min aside and rushed to the maid who was devouring the steamed bun, snatching the remaining half and eating it greedily. Si Min staggered to her feet and scolded. Si Lan, what are you doing? I said nothing, finished the steamed bun, and smiled. Sister, from today onward, you can go to the kitchen and fight for your food yourself. The servants' meals were served at fixed times and places. Each person received a bowl of coarse rice, and the vegetables were placed in large bowls. If you arrived late, there was nothing left to eat, so you had to rush to grab your share. My sister disliked the sight of servants crowding around to grab food, so I always helped her serve herself. If she didn't have enough to eat, I would even share some of my coarse rice with her. To reassure her, I said, "Eat, sister. I'm already full." She would then eat my food without a second thought. I never thought about the fact that her own portion wasn't enough for her. And I was giving her my share. How could I not be hungry? Looking back, I was such a fool. Now, I won't spoil her anymore. I'll see if she can still be as calm and unassuming as a chrysanthemum when she's always hungry. Will she generously share the steamed bun I finally managed to snatch from the dog's mouth with the other maids, so they can call her a kind-hearted person? Just as I finished eating the steamed bun, the housekeeper came over and saw us gathered together. She shouted angrily, "Are you slacking off again?" We scattered like birds. I continued sweeping the courtyard with the other maids, while Si Min was responsible for fetching water to water the flowers. Watering the flowers was physically demanding work, and Si Min soon grew tired, panting softly. However, she had a proud nature and would never ask for help. Every time I saw her struggling, I would offer to assist her. Today, after finishing my chores, I noticed the matron was absent and went to rest in a nearby pavilion. The maid who had eaten half of my steamed bun, named Lu Chunhua, couldn't stand seeing me so relaxed. She scolded, "Can't you see how tired Si Min is? You're her own sister. Why aren't you helping her?" I sneered and raised my eyelids. "Can't stand it? Then go help her yourself." Lu Chunhua stamped her feet, saw that I wasn't going to move, and angrily ran over to Si Min and said, "I'll fetch water for you. Thank you for sharing half your steamed bun with me." Si Min spoke softly. "Thank you." She did not refuse the maid's help. The two worked together to finish Si Min's flower watering task. Before they finished, I rushed to the kitchen and queued up before everyone else to get my meal. Si Min and I had just entered the Duke's mansion and were the lowest-ranking maids. We didn't get any leftovers from our masters, and we had the worst food, clothing, and living conditions. If we got sick, we couldn't afford a doctor and had to leave our fate to heaven. The coarse rice in our bowls was made from brown rice and bran mixed with some potatoes. It was difficult to swallow but barely enough to fill our stomachs. Several dirty wooden basins were placed on the table beside us, filled with a mishmash of dishes. A crowd gathered around the basins, pushing and shoving, eating and grabbing. When Si Min and Lu Chunhua arrived, there was no space left. I pretended not to notice and continued eating my own meal. Occasionally, I glanced up and saw Si Min frowning as she watched the others scramble for food, looking utterly disgusted. They had been slaves for a month, and she hadn't adjusted yet. Lu Chunhua also pushed her way into the crowd, leaving Si Min alone on the outskirts, holding her bowl and eating slowly. Without me making room for her or grabbing food for her, Si Min could only eat the coarse rice dry. When mealtime ended, I rubbed my stomach, feeling for the first time how satisfying it was to be full. Glancing at Si-min, her face was pale, as if she couldn't bear it but had to endure it. The matron came to urge everyone back to work. Si-min saw me and seemed to want to say something, but I followed the others away without acknowledging her. There was no need to ask. She would surely complain to me about how heavy the work was and ask me to help her. I wasn't going to be her scapegoat. Lu Chunhua had helped her all morning and wasn't willing to help anymore in the afternoon. Si-min struggled to finish her work alone and it was already very late. By the time she went to the kitchen to eat, there was nothing left to eat. So she returned to the servants' quarters hungry. The quarters were a large dormitory with over a dozen maids crammed together. Back then, I had let Si-min take the spot by the wall, sleeping next to her to shield her from the others. Today, before she returned, I had already swapped places with someone else and moved to the other side. From now on, whatever happens, it's none of my business. As I dozed off, I suddenly heard a scream, "Your leg! Get it off!" Everyone was startled awake. Upon asking around, they found out that the maid who had swapped places with me had accidentally placed her foot on Si-min while sleeping. Before, with me blocking her, Si-min slept comfortably. Now that I'm gone, others' hands and feet naturally don't obey their will. Everyone grew impatient. It's such a small thing, why make such a fuss? Under everyone's scolding, Si-min's eyes turned red, and she softly said I'm sorry, refusing to argue, then lay back down to sleep. The maid squeezed her, so she tried to move toward the wall, forcing herself to endure it, adhering to her motto of not fighting or competing. If she could continue like this, I would respect her for being consistent in her words and actions. A true person of integrity. I wonder if she can maintain her original intentions. During the day, Si-min wanted to talk to me, but I always left first. The servants had many rules and were busy with tasks, coming and going early and late. She couldn't join in the conversations and kept her distance, so she naturally wouldn't force herself on me. She had never done menial work before, so she worked slowly. At mealtime, she didn't want to compete with others, so she ended up eating coarse food every day and couldn't get any vegetables. After a few days, her complexion had become as pale as the food she ate. Si-min had a bit of luck on her side. Just as she was about to break down, the head maid, annoyed by her slowness, reassigned her tasks, sending her to clean the courtyard while Lu Chunhua was given the task of watering the flowers. Si-min sighed in relief. Lu Chunhua, however, was unhappy, believing Si-min had intentionally set her up. One day, while I was cleaning my assigned area, I suddenly heard arguing coming from behind the bushes. "Hey, you helped me fetch water when I was watering the flowers earlier. Now I'm watering the flowers. Why aren't you helping me fetch water?" I peeked over and saw that it was Lu Chunhua and Si-min arguing. Of course, it was Lu Chunhua doing all the talking. Si-min was always gentle and magnanimous, never arguing or competing with others, so she didn't bother to defend herself. She whispered, "I'm sorry. I'll come help you right away." She carried the bucket back, but stumbled and tripped over something, falling to the ground with the bucket spilling its contents. Ugh. Si-min hugged her knees and began to cry. As she wiped away her tears, she noticed me standing nearby and called out pitifully, "Si-lan." Her eyes clearly conveyed "Come help me." I rolled my eyes and turned away. Si-min looked at me in disbelief, her eyes reddening further. She hugged her knees and sobbed softly, as if she were a delicate flower being torn apart. The most pitiful person in the world. My heart was as hard as stone, and I continued sweeping the floor beside her. Why is the young lady crying alone? At that moment, a male servant passed by and asked casually, "Si-min?" Her eyes blurred with tears. looked at him as if he were a divine being sent from heaven to save her from suffering. She was beautiful and had adopted a pitiful demeanor. So the male servant softened his heart, hurriedly asked her what had happened, and after hearing her response, said, "Oh, carrying water is not a job for a young lady. It should be done by a man." He then picked up the bucket and left to fetch water for Si-min. When he heard that Si-min was helping someone else, the male servant felt even more pity for her. "You have a kind heart, young lady." Si-min lowered her head and remained silent. The male servant carried the water to the flower bed for Si-min. Lu Chunhua was average-looking and dark-skinned, and the male servant felt no pity for her. He impatiently said to her, "How dare you bully other maids? Do your own work. The matron in charge here is my aunt. Be careful, or I'll report you. And you'll be in big trouble." Servants were ranked by the color of their sashes. The male servant's sash was green, one rank higher than our blue ones. Lu Chunhua was terrified, but I helped her fetch water before. Si-min bit her lip and whispered, "I gave you half a steamed bun." The male servant grew even angrier and scolded Lu Chunhua. "You're just a selfish slut." Lu Chunhua dared not say another word. I watched the entire scene from nearby and couldn't help but sneer. I had thought Si-min would stick to her principle of not competing or fighting, but it turned out she could at least defend herself. In my previous life, I was wrongfully accused and killed. Yet she wouldn't even speak up to defend me. Does she really not know pain until it hits her own body? Such a person deserves to be kept at a distance. I quietly left. The male servant was named Yang Sheng, and he later helped Si-min in various ways. With his assistance, Si-min's life improved somewhat. However, it was only slightly better than before. Yang Sheng's abilities were limited, and he couldn't take care of everything for her. He could arrange lighter chores for Si-min through the housekeeper, but he was powerless to help with her living expenses. Si-min still ate coarse food and couldn't get any vegetables. Si-lan. At mealtime, I was wolfing down my food when Si-min called out to me repeatedly from behind, as if summoning my soul. I couldn't take it anymore and turned around. "What is it?" She hesitated, as if too ashamed to speak. I remained silent. Si-min was as calm as a chrysanthemum, never vying for attention or favors. She didn't like to ask for help, so others would eagerly offer their services. I had always been willing to accommodate her. Now, I couldn't be bothered. She didn't have to say anything. She wasn't the eldest sister of the home mansion, let alone my benefactor. We were all lowly maidservants. So why should I put up with her? I turned my head away and continued eating. Si-lan. She continued calling out as if she were calling someone back from the dead, her voice quite pitiful. I turned back. "Just say what you want." Si-min opened her mouth and whispered, Can you help me pick some food?" Everyone looked at her in surprise. "We're all lowly maids, how dare she ask me to help her pick food?" I said, "Don't you have hands? Pick it yourself." I can't reach." I sneered. "When you were grabbing my steamed bun to curry favor, your hands and feet were pretty quick. You should be able to do it." Si-min pouted in distress. "Oh, you still think you're a spoiled young miss? You actually want someone else to pick food for you? Should Si-lan feed you instead?" Lu Chunhua snorted disdainfully. After being scolded by Yang Sheng last time, Lu Chunhua realized Si-min was a hypocrite and had completely grown to hate her. No one else spoke up for Si-min. Si-min felt wronged, her eyes reddening slightly as she lowered her head, looking ashamed and embarrassed. In her previous life, Si-min had gained a reputation for kindness by often sharing food with others, which laid the foundation for her becoming a concubine. Now, without my sacrifice, she didn't even have enough to eat herself, let alone share with others. Lu Chunhua was not grateful to her like she had been in her previous life. praising her kind heart everywhere she went. So the masters of the mansion naturally didn't have a good impression of her. Si Min's delicate body trembled, and she bit her lip. In the end, she didn't leave. As if she had made up her mind, she squeezed into the crowd and picked up her chopsticks to grab some food. She ate while crying. No one understood why she was crying. I knew. She was crying because she, a celestial maiden descended to the mortal realm, was now fighting with a group of maidservants over food, losing her dignity and pride. That night, I fetched water to wash up and prepare for bed when I heard commotion nearby. Si Min cried softly. I've given up all my pride and self-respect, and I never fight with anyone. But things never go as I wish, and others don't like me. Never mind. It's all because the home mansion has fallen into decline. Yang Xing was heartbroken. You are actually a lady from the home mansion. It's such a pity that you've fallen to this. Those cheap girls are all blind and only know how to kick those who are lower than them. Don't bother with them. Si Min said indifferently. It doesn't matter. Even though I'm in the mud, my heart is clear. I'll just accept my fate. Yang Xing was deeply moved to have fallen so low. Yet you remain so composed. It's truly admirable. Here's the silver I've saved. It's only 3 taels. If you don't mind, take it to buy something nice to eat. How can I accept this? Take it. Just remember me. The two pushed and shoved for a moment. Then Si Min said softly, I will always remember you as a good person. I listened with a twitch at the corner of my mouth. If fighting with the servants for food meant abandoning all pride and self-respect, then what was I? A former mansion lady? What about the sisters who were sold into brothels? And she spoke so casually. But her hands didn't stop. She took the man's money directly. What kind of casualness was that? And good person, wasn't that just how she dismissed men? In her previous life, Si Min was a concubine in the Duke's mansion. She met an old acquaintance who had feelings for her and secretly helped her. Si Min and I were in the same boat. So even though she was doing something behind my back, I had to keep it a secret and help her, thinking that it would be good to have an extra pair of hands. That young master spent a lot of money and effort on her. Si Min never promised men anything. Men always felt there was a detached quality about her, praising her as standing in mud but with a pure heart and as delicate as a chrysanthemum, uncontested by the world, and were willing to sacrifice for her. Later, Si Min gave birth to a child and secured her position in the Duke's mansion. So she tearfully broke off her relationship with the young master. This Yang Xing was the same. I guessed that he would become a stepping stone for Si Min. And once she no longer needed him, she would completely abandon him. I knew it very well. Oh well. One wanted to hit and one wanted to be hit. It was none of my business. I didn't bother to remind her and quietly went back to my room to sleep. Si Min took Yang Xing's money, and I thought she would improve her living conditions. But she didn't. 2 days later, she suddenly pulled me aside in the darkness of night and whispered, Ceylon. Seeing that I was about to leave, she placed a few copper coins in my hand. So she uses money to bribe others? Then why, in her previous life, did she act like a dead person, silently watching me get beaten to death, only crying weakly and helplessly? Taking a deep breath, I suppressed my anger and asked, what do you want me to do? We're sisters. After all, sisters should help each other. She tried to say something else, but I wasn't interested and turned to leave. Seeing that I wasn't falling for her tricks, she finally revealed her true purpose. Ceylon, you're close to the matron in charge. Can you think of a way to get me into the inner courtyard? I furrowed my brows, looking at her in confusion, trying to figure out her intentions. I had been reborn, just like in my previous life, where after finishing my own chores, I would help the housekeeper with her work to earn her praise. In my previous life, when the maids in the inner courtyard were being reassigned, I gave all the silver I had saved to the housekeeper, asking her to recommend me. After overcoming several difficulties, I finally became a maid in the prince's study, along with my sister. At that time, I thought that the prince would take care of us when he saw my sister. But I didn't expect that the prince didn't even know we were in the mansion and didn't give us any special treatment. My sister also continued to be as quiet as a flower, doing nothing. I went to great lengths to arrange for my sister to appear frequently in front of the prince, while she remained silent. I would constantly recount our past, stirring the prince's pity. Step by step, I finally managed to win the prince's heart, and my sister was taken as his concubine. I have no intention of taking Si-min with me in this life. I hinted to the housekeeper 2 days ago that I wanted to be transferred to the inner courtyard. Today, Si-min stopped me. Could she have heard something from Yangsheng? I asked. Do you want to serve in the inner courtyard? Or just go there for a walk? Si-min looked at me silently. I understood, she wanted to use my opportunity to serve in the inner courtyard. Ha! Do you think I'm a fool? Back then, I went to great lengths to bring her along. Why would I do this now? If you want to work in the inner courtyard, I can't arrange that. However, if you just want to visit, once the old lady's birthday comes around, the inner courtyard will be short-handed, and the matron can arrange for us to help out. But you'll have to return afterward. The Duke's mansion had a strict hierarchy, with maids divided into 3 classes, and there were rules about where they could and couldn't go. Si-min and I had been at the Duke's mansion for 3 months and had never been to the inner courtyard. Without access to the inner courtyard, it was naturally difficult to come into contact with the master. After listening to me, Si-min bit her lip, seeming a little dissatisfied. But she didn't argue and said softly, "Then it's still good to go and help out." I understood what she was thinking. You want to see someone from the Duke's mansion? Si-min's face flushed red, and she lowered her head and said, "No. I just want to see if I can meet the crown prince and ask about my family's situation." Does she really need to inquire about her family's situation? She clearly just wants to see the crown prince. I was about to refuse, but then I thought about it. From what I knew from my previous life, the crown prince wasn't entirely indifferent to her. If she could catch his eye, my sister might also benefit by association, and perhaps even rise in status. Even if she doesn't rise in rank, helping her out and getting a little something for myself wouldn't be so bad. Right now, maids are the ones who need money the most, and I don't mind earning some from her. So I smiled and said, "It's good that you've come to your senses. Back then, when I urged you to meet the crown prince sooner, you always said you didn't want to bother him. Now that you're willing to go, the crown prince will surely take care of you out of consideration for your past relationship." When I first entered the Duke's mansion, I thought that the Duke's mansion had bought us back specifically to take care of my sister, hoping that Si-min could get in touch with her old acquaintances. Little did I know that she was putting on airs and refusing to lower herself to beg, hoping that others would take the initiative to transfer her. As a result, we were the lowest maids for 3 months. Now that I refuse to carry her burden anymore, she can't stand the hard life anymore, and she's finally willing to lower herself to beg for help. Indeed, when it comes to basic necessities, even a goddess must come down to earth. You've misunderstood. I'm not trying to climb the social ladder, I just want to ask about my family's situation. Si-min spoke with righteous indignation. Humph. I didn't call her out, but smiled and said, "I can help you make connections, but the old woman is short on cash. You'll have to pay her." Si-min hesitated. Do I really have to pay? I resisted the urge to scold her. If you won't pay, do you expect me to? Of course. The more, the better. I patiently explained for a while and quoted a number based on the money Yangsheng gave me. She hesitated for a moment, then handed all of Yangxing's money to me. Thank you, sister. Don't worry, sister. I smiled and felt the weight of the money in my pouch. A third-class maid's monthly allowance was only 20 coins. 3 taels of silver was a fortune for us now. Si Min was willing to part with it so easily just to see the prince. She truly didn't care about spending someone else's money. I had benefited, so naturally I would help her get what she wanted. But would the crown prince take a liking to her if she just ran over to see him like that? The crown prince had liked her because she was famous when she was a young lady in the marquis's mansion. And she had a reputation for being kind and generous in the duke's mansion. She had become the crown prince's study maid and maintained her image of being as gentle as a chrysanthemum. I had taken care of all the other unsavory matters for her. Now that she's throwing herself at him, will the crown prince still like her? I'm pretty curious about the outcome too. The next day, I gave the money to the matron in charge and asked her to arrange for my sister and me to help at the birthday banquet, and to finalize my transfer to the inner courtyard. The matron, having received the money, smiled and said, "No problem, but this matter can only be handled after the new year." "Thank you, matron." I sighed in relief. I hadn't spent a single coin to secure my transfer to the inner courtyard. It was well worth it. As for Si Min, I wouldn't be foolish enough to take her with me again. It would only cause trouble for myself. I had agreed to take her to the inner courtyard to work, and I had done that. That settled it. As I emerged from the old woman's room, I happened to bump into Yangxing, thinking of Si Min using his money to meet another man. I suddenly felt a wave of jealousy wash over me. Yangxing looked at me puzzledly. "What's wrong? Is there something on my head?" I said, "Nothing. I just think you should wear a hat." Before I knew it, the day of the birthday banquet arrived. Si Min and I were assigned by the matron to work in the inner courtyard. As third-class maids, we were not allowed to approach the nobles and were sent to wash dishes in the kitchen. The dishes piled up like a small mountain, and we washed them until our backs ached, without stopping for a moment. If this continued, forget about seeing the young master, we wouldn't even be able to leave the kitchen. "Si Lan, why are we working in the kitchen?" Si Min asked. I raised my eyelids slightly. "Sister, you asked me to ask the matron to transfer you to the inner courtyard to help out. You're already here, aren't you?" Si Min bit her lip. "I thought we could at least serve dishes or something." I chuckled. "Sister, you've been a lady and a maid. How could you possibly serve dishes to guests as a third-class servant?" Si Min fell silent, seeming a bit aggrieved, but she held back and didn't press the matter further. She said magnanimously, "Never mind. You're still my sister. I won't hold this against you." She muttered something under her breath and continued washing the dishes. "Is this my fault? Si Min, make yourself clear. What do you mean by I won't hold it against you?" I threw down the bowl. "I agreed to arrange for you to work in the inner courtyard after speaking with the matron. You never mentioned serving dishes in the front hall. If you had, I never would have agreed. Do you expect me to pay someone to arrange everything so you can serve dishes alongside those second-class maids? Do you think I'm capable of that? You think too highly of me." I didn't lower my voice, and others looked over. Si Min's face turned red, and she hurriedly said, I'm not blaming you." I snorted lightly and squatted down to continue washing the dishes. Si Min held back tears, looking as though she had suffered a great injustice. But there were no men here, and everyone was busy, so no one paid her any attention. We worked from morning till night and had no time to go out. As the banquet was about to end, Si Min finally panicked and humbled herself, begging me, "Si Lan, my stomach hurts. Can you help wash the dishes?" I knew what she was thinking and smiled. "Sure." Before she could react, I added, "But you have to pay." 10 coins. She stammered, her eyes filled with disbelief. If you don't want to, just leave it. I'll wash the rest myself. I didn't even look up. You're so money hungry. She stomped her feet in frustration. Humph. For her own future. She was willing to flirt with men, use their money to find opportunities to help in the inner courtyard, all just to catch a glimpse of the prince. She completely ruined her image of being as calm as a chrysanthemum and uninterested in the world. In my previous life, I went out of my way for her. Yet she stood by and did nothing when I was in danger. What does that mean? Thinking about it these past few days has made me so angry I could spit blood. If you want help, you have to pay. Si Min clenched her teeth and said, All right. I don't have any money right now. I'll give it to you when I go back. I thought about it and agreed. Si Min hurried out. Watching her leave, I smiled, hoping she would get what she wanted. As the sky grew dark, I finished the work for 2 people. Just as I stood up and stretched to relieve my discomfort, I heard commotion outside, mixed with the scolding of the kitchen manager. Everyone rushed out, and I followed to take a look. I saw 2 old women dragging Si Min into the courtyard and throwing her forcefully onto the ground. Si Min was disheveled and looked utterly miserable. Her expression was sorrowful and dazed. What's going on? Others asked. Humph. This little slut dared to sneak into the banquet and offend the honored guest. The housekeeper shouted, Beat her. The old woman beside her raised her hand and slapped Si Min's face repeatedly. Soon, Si Min's face was swollen from the blows. She wept silently, her eyes vacant. After the punishment, the steward warned us again before leaving with his men. After cleaning up the mess, Si Min and I returned to our original lodgings. On the way, Si Min suddenly asked, Why did he pretend not to see me? I turned back. Tears streamed down Si Min's face as she spoke. Heartbroken. Xinghua Weiyu. Riding a horse on the wall. Holding hands with you. Has he forgotten all of that? I asked curiously. Did you see the prince? What did you say? She shook her head, looking at her pitiful appearance and thinking about her usual demeanor. I blurted out. You didn't stand next to him and do anything. Just hoping he would speak to you first. Right? Sure enough. Si Min lifted her head, he saw me. Very well. She truly is as calm as a chrysanthemum. Uninterested in the world. After going to such great lengths to secure such an important opportunity, she still acted so indifferent. Hoping the man would speak first? I couldn't help but sneer. Si Min, even if you are a lady of the home mansion, the crown prince is still above you. If you meet him, you should go up and greet him. Now you are just a third-class maid and a slave. How could the crown prince possibly talk to you first? Si Min was stunned. But in the past, the crown prince greeted me. I couldn't help but mock her. You and the crown prince have had multiple chance encounters. Don't you think they were real? Your stepmother schemed for you. And you acted like a noble lady, saying nothing and doing nothing. But we sisters had to speak up for you, explaining things and bringing the crown prince over. Today, you went running over there alone, with no one to arrange things for you. If you don't speak up, why would the crown prince bother with you? Besides, whether the crown prince likes her or not is another matter. After all, this marriage was arranged by the duchess, and the stepmother schemed for Si Min, arranging for her to accidentally meet the crown prince a few times. Every time they met, the prince was polite, but I didn't see any signs of deep affection. Yet, from Si Min's mouth, it became apricot blossoms in the rain, riding a horse by the wall, holding hands with you. It sounded like they were deeply in love. My honest words were hard for Si Min to hear. She rushed into the house, lay down, and cried softly. Her crying didn't matter to me. I wouldn't forget the important matter at hand. Si Min. I washed the dishes for you. Shouldn't you give me the 10 coins? I followed her in and asked. Si Min threw off the blankets, tears streaming down her face, and accused me. Si Lan. How could you do this to me? The sadness and shock in her voice made it seem as though her current situation was all my fault. I was baffled. We agreed from the start I'd wash the dishes. And you'd give me the money. Are you going back on your word? As a lowly maid, money was crucial. Every copper coin was precious. That was 10 coins. After all, Si Min wailed loudly, I'm already like this. And you're kicking me while I'm down? Do you have any conscience? I don't have any money. Go away. Go. She cried so loudly that some sleeping maids woke up and began to scold both of us. I reluctantly returned to my own spot and lay down, planning to demand the money from Si Min the next day. However, the next day, Si Min fell ill, feverish and delirious, muttering, apricot blossoms in the rain, riding a horse on the wall, as if she were a pitiful woman abandoned by a cruel man. She remained unconscious. The housekeeper came in to take a look and coldly ordered that she be moved to a side room. In wealthy households, lowly maidservants were always moved to separate quarters when they fell ill to prevent spreading the illness to others. Once moved, those with money could hire a doctor and survive, while the poor were left to die. If they died, they were wrapped in a straw mat and thrown into a mass grave. It was extremely cruel. This was one of the reasons I was desperately saving money, in case I fell ill. Money could save my life. Upon hearing of Si Min's illness, Yang Xing, who had been secretly involved with her, was deeply distressed. Yang Xing couldn't enter the maid's quarters, so he called me out and ordered, for the next few days, you will be responsible for taking care of Si Min. Relying on his status as the niece of the head maid, he forced me to go to the side room to attend to Si Min. I was furious. Not only did I not receive the 10 coins, but I also had to take care of that troublesome person. Do you know why Si Min was punished yesterday? I heard she went to the inner courtyard and offended an important guest. I asked, why did she go to the inner courtyard? Yang Xing was taken aback. I sneered, because she was previously engaged to the young master. The money you gave her was used to bribe your aunt, which is how she got the chance to see the young master in the inner courtyard. As for why she wanted to see the young master, she said it was to inquire about her family's situation. Do you believe her? Yang Xing froze. Even after all this, you still want me to take care of her? Yang Xing remained silent. I turned and left. I thought Yang Xing would back down, but to my surprise, he was quite loyal. He actually hired a doctor for Si Min and used money to have Lu Chunhua take care of her. It seems that Si Min's image of being as pure as a chrysanthemum, untainted by the mud, still lingers in Yang Xing's heart. Well, I've already told the truth. As long as she doesn't bother me, what he thinks is none of my business. A few days later, Si Min recovered. Her illness wasn't severe, she was just emotionally shattered, which is why she couldn't get out of bed. Even after recovering, she often gazed sadly toward the inner courtyard, tears welling in her eyes, mourning the prince who knew nothing of her pain. She cried at the sight of falling leaves, at the sight of withered flowers and willows, and even an offhand remark from others could trigger her fragile emotions, causing her to weep uncontrollably. What's she doing? Lu Chunhua couldn't understand Si Min's springtime melancholy and complained, if she doesn't get back to work, all the chores will end up on my shoulders. With the housekeeper's support, Yang Xing couldn't order me around, so he took it out on Lu Chunhua. I said indifferently, have you never seen a play? When a lady or concubine is neglected by a man, she's locked away in a cold, remote room. She's supposed to gaze at the sky and reflect on her feelings for the man, while we maids have to clean the house and find ways to make money to cover her basic needs. Why should we? Lu Chunhua protested. We're maids. Not the mothers of the young ladies or concubines. Even if we're dragged into the side rooms and cold palaces. Since we're serving people, we should get paid. Why should we have to both work and pay? I said. Perhaps the maids owed them from a previous life. Si Min isn't a young lady. And I'm not her maid. Why should I always have to help her with her chores? Maybe you owed her from a previous life? Lu Chunhua was furious. We hadn't lowered our voices. And Si Min remained silent for a moment before walking over and saying, I've never asked you to help me with my chores. That was true, she had never made such a request. If she had been more assertive, she should have clearly explained the situation to Yang Sheng, and Lu Chunhua wouldn't have had to do her work. At the very least, when Lu Chunhua was doing her work, she could have refused firmly and insisted on doing it herself. Unfortunately, she didn't do either of those things. Lu Chunhua rolled her eyes and said, Then you better get to work. Si Min bit her lip, turned around angrily, and went back to work. She had just recovered from illness and wasn't feeling well, so the work was quite tiring for her. I called out to her, Si Min. What? She looked up at me with pleading eyes, as if she were begging me to help her. I said, When are you going to pay me back the 10 coins you owe me? Si Min was so angry that she pulled out her money pouch and threw it at my feet. Here. I picked it up, took out 10 coins, and returned the pouch to her. She grabbed the pouch and said painfully, Si Lan, you were the person I trusted most. Yet you're the one who hurt me the most. Making her repay the 10 coins she owed me had hurt her so deeply? What did I do to hurt you? I asked her. Debt must be repaid, it's only fair. Si Min turned away. Never mind. I won't argue with you. Just leave. Her back, thin and desolate in the wind, looked extremely sad, as if she had been betrayed by both love and family. Even in such pain, she stood firmly, unwilling to argue with a vulgar person, silently swallowing her bitterness. I didn't bother to respond and just walked away. My attitude toward her was clear: keep your distance and mind your own business. To ease the tension, Si Min gave Lu Chunhua a few coins and apologized. Of course, the money came from Yang Sheng. When using others' belongings to do favors, she was always generous, such as taking my steamed buns, blankets, and food, without caring how hard I had worked to get them back. Although Yang Sheng was of a higher rank than us, he was still a servant, and servants didn't earn much. Giving her any money was already a sign of deep affection. But Si Min didn't care about that. She didn't even complain about the small amount, which was already generous. For the sake of the money, Lu Chunhua calmed down, but she still didn't give her a friendly look. Before long, winter arrived, and the weather turned cold. If we weren't warm enough. By the time the lunar month of December arrived, the biting wind would howl, and ice would form everywhere. If we got frostbite, it could be fatal. The higher-ups distributed blankets to the servants, starting with the first-class maids, then the second class, and finally us. The blankets were passed around several times, and all the new ones were swapped out for old, torn ones, and there weren't enough to go around. To snatch the blankets, I argued with others again. It's just a blanket. Why fight over it? Si Min walked over, smelled the musty odor of the old blankets, frowned, and took a step back. If she wants it, give it to her. Don't ruin the harmony. I sneered. If you're not going to fight for it, why are you telling me what to do? Don't you know it's cold in winter and blankets are important? Si Min opened her mouth but said nothing. I said, even now, you're still acting like the older sister? Si Min bit her lip and remained silent. I snatched my blanket back and carried it into the house. In my previous life, Si Min gave her blanket to someone else and gained a good reputation. I used money to get a thin blanket. During the coldest part of the lunar month, the two of us hugged each other for warmth, covered by the thin blanket, and ended up both freezing sick. If I hadn't used the remaining money to hire a doctor, we probably would have ended up in the afterlife. Even when I was seriously ill, I still had to get up to take care of her. She thought it was only natural, and I thought it was only natural at the time. In the end, she gained a good reputation, while I became the selfish villain. Looking back now, I was the one who got the raw deal. This lifetime, I will never be a fool again. I used the 10 coins Si Min gave me to buy a thick old cotton coat to ensure I wouldn't get sick in the winter. Soon, the weather grew colder and colder, and eventually ice began to form. No charcoal? Si Min asked. Lu Chunhua said. We're lowly maids, how could we afford charcoal? Si Min froze, her face pale and trembling from the cold. I was wearing the cotton coat and wrapped in an old blanket, feeling quite warm. Si Min had endured the cold all day and couldn't take it anymore. She came to me and pleaded. Sister. Here we go again. Whenever she called me sister, it never meant anything good. What do you want? I lifted my eyelids. Since you have a blanket and a cotton coat, can I? No. I cut her off without hesitation. I warned you earlier that it would be cold in winter. I refused to give her the blanket, and Si Min stepped back with reddened eyes, looking at me as if I were the worst criminal in the world. She soon fell ill from the cold and sent someone to inform Yangxing. This time, Yangxing didn't immediately call a doctor or send anything, but made a demand. She had to sleep in his room. His room had a charcoal fire, cotton blankets, and food. It must have been very comfortable. Once she went there, she would become his person. Yangxing was of a higher rank than us, and the matron in charge was his aunt. According to worldly standards, a coarse girl like us would be considered a good match for him. Si Min was even more of a slave, without a stroke of luck. She would never have a chance to rise above her station in life. Everyone could see how well Yangxing treated her, so she would definitely not suffer if she married him. But I knew that Si Min would never agree, because she had never liked Yangxing from the beginning and only wanted to exploit him for her own gain. Sure enough, Si Min rejected Yangxing. Yangxing probably knew he was just a stepping stone for Si Min, so he refused to let her exploit him anymore. He hardened his heart, didn't give her a blanket, and didn't call a doctor. Just as Si Min was suffering and helpless, Lu Chunhua unexpectedly brought a blanket and slept beside her, the two of them huddling together to endure the cold. I was shocked, because Lu Chunhua had always been greedy for money, unwilling to suffer any loss, and would snatch everything. I never expected her to take the initiative to care for someone she despised. I asked her, why did you do that? Lu Chunhua sighed. Because she once gave me half a steamed bun. I couldn't just watch her die. As a person, you can't be without a conscience. For a moment, I didn't know how to judge this person. I felt that such a thing wasn't something she should have done. After all, she was Lu Chunhua. Lu Chunhua took care of Si Min and soon fell ill herself. The matron in charge coldly ordered someone to move the two of them to a side room. The side room was drafty and even colder. After hesitating for a long time, perhaps moved by Lu Chunhua, I brought my cotton coat into the side room for them to share. After all, the thick blankets were enough for me to get through the winter. Si Min lay on the bed, half asleep, while Lu Chunhua coughed so violently it shook the room. Yet her expression remained calm. Do you regret it? I asked. Yes. I do, she admitted honestly. If I had known I would catch a disease, I never would have acted so kindly. After speaking, her dark face broke into a smile. But I've come to terms with it recently. Life and death are predetermined. If I were to spend my entire life as a lowly maid, it wouldn't be much better. Perhaps I'd be reincarnated sooner and born into a noble family. Her spirits were surprisingly high. I remained silent for a moment before leaving. When Si Min woke up, unable to endure the cold and pain, she agreed to go to Yang Xing's room. Yang Xing took Si Min away but did not take Lu Chunhua with him, leaving her alone in the side room to die. I gritted my teeth and went to get medicine for Lu Chunhua. No. No. I know my own body. She refused. I asked, "Do you hate Si Min?" She said, "I don't hate her anymore. It was my own choice to serve her back then. I can't blame others. The sooner I die, the sooner I can be reborn. In my next life, I'll enjoy wealth and honor." Ha ha ha. Her words were carefree and indifferent. This composure was something I never expected to see in such a greedy and sharp-tongued maid. That was a state of mind that Si Min had pursued for over a decade, one that others had praised for years. Yet none had ever attained. Calm, carefree, composed, and elegant. If she had been beautiful, one could have praised her for being as delicate as a chrysanthemum. Unfortunately, she was not beautiful, and there was no one to praise her. I stepped back and wiped away my tears. The next day, Lu Chunhua's body was wrapped in a straw mat and thrown into the graveyard. That winter, 3 maids died in the courtyard. Yet it caused no stir. Everyone was numb, death was too common. And it was unusual for someone not to die. Who could blame them for their lowly status? Si Min was staying with Yang Xing. Perhaps he had been shaken by something, for he never mentioned marrying her, and the two continued to live together in an unclear relationship. I do not know what happened afterward, until winter passed, and Si Min returned, looking even more dazed and haggard. The maidservants all smiled suggestively at her. Someone mocked her. "Without a matchmaker or dowry, you just sleep with a man. You're not even worth being a concubine." Si Min burst into tears. The maids laughed. But Si Min wiped away her tears, straightened her back, and said, "I've been promoted to a second-class maid and will be moving to the inner courtyard." After speaking, she gave me a deep look. Her eyes filled with hatred and pride. I didn't know where her hatred toward me came from, since I hadn't helped her before. But why should I help her? Just because of my sister's status? I had always helped her before, but she didn't seem very grateful. Once I stopped helping her, she turned into an enemy? I laughed sarcastically. Congratulations. The other maids looked surprised and jealous. Being promoted to a second-class maid meant receiving 1 tael of silver per month, which would greatly improve her living conditions. Si Min noticed the expressions on the others' faces and seemed to feel a bit better. I asked, "Si Min, do you remember Lu Chunhua?" She paused, looking confused. I said, "She caught a cold while taking care of you and died." Si Min was at a loss for a moment and defended herself. "I didn't ask her to take care of me." She then fled the scene. She indeed didn't ask Lu Chunhua to take care of her. Just like in my previous life, she didn't ask me to take care of her. So our deaths were all our own doing, it had nothing to do with her. I sighed deeply. The next year, the servants were reassigned, and Si Min and I were sent to the inner courtyard. When she saw me, she looked startled. "How did you end up here too?" I said, "You took Yang Xing's path, and I took the old nurse's path. You traded your body for your future, and I traded silver for my future. That's why we both ended up in the inner courtyard." Si Min bit her lip and didn't say anything else. When we arrived at the inner courtyard, we were assigned to another matron. I tried my best to curry favor with her, but Si Min didn't care and even despised me, saying, "You were once a young lady of the home mansion. How can you be so servile?" Is that how you curried favor with the matron and got transferred to the inner courtyard? I sneered. We are already servants. So can't we be servile? You used to be a young lady in a marquis mansion. Yet you gave yourself to a male servant without a matchmaker or a dowry. You're even more despicable than me. Min was speechless and burst into tears when she couldn't argue. I had no choice. I was about to die. And you wouldn't help me. So I had no choice. How is it still my fault? I said. When the blankets were distributed, they should have been mine based on contribution. I went out of my way to fight for them. But you just gave yours away to others for fame. And now you're suffering the consequences. You come asking for my blankets and cotton jackets? How dare you? If you want to be a good person, at least know your own worth. You keep taking my things to curry favor with others. Time and time again. I've never seen anyone as hypocritical as you. You're being too harsh. Min was so angry she was trembling all over. Look at yourself now. I appraised her. You're sharp-tongued and provocative. Where's the grace you once had? Why have you become like this? Isn't it because I refuse to help you anymore? Without anyone to help you, how could you possibly have the calm and unassuming demeanor of a chrysanthemum? And what about Lu Chunhua? Didn't she help you? But when you entered Yang Xing's house, why didn't you bring her along for treatment? I told him. Yang Xing refused. I laughed. So you did nothing. Just watched her die. Your kindness is so hypocritical. Min froze. Clearly devastated. I turned and left. From that day onward, my relationship with Min was completely shattered. And we never spoke again. Life in the inner courtyard became much easier. In March, the spring breeze swept across the land. The crown prince of the duke's mansion was getting married. And the mansion was decorated with lanterns and banners, filled with festive cheer. On this happy day, Min fell ill. The doctor said she had a heart condition. With the crown prince getting married, her dreams of becoming his wife were completely shattered. Yang Xing took good care of her, as if he knew what she was thinking, and promised to marry her. He even found a matchmaker to propose on his behalf. Min neither refused nor agreed. Since Yang Xing had made his intentions clear, she would no longer be gossiped about behind her back as someone without a matchmaker or dowry, willing to settle for a lowly position. Min's mood improved, and she soon recovered, regaining her spirits. She had someone who cared for her, and her life in the inner courtyard was better than mine. As a lowly servant with no power or influence, I was naturally the one who was bullied. In the outer courtyard, we didn't have enough to eat or wear, and there weren't many schemers. In the inner courtyard, many of the maids were no pushovers. One night, while I was sleeping, someone suddenly pulled me out of bed and threw me on the ground. The courtyard was lit up brightly. The Duchess stared at me coldly. Search her. A group of maids and old women rushed into the room and searched under my bed, finding a valuable pearl hairpin. How dare you steal the dowry? An old woman rushed forward and slapped my face. It turned out that after the crown prince's wife had arrived, she had ordered an inventory of the dowry in the storeroom and had it recorded in a register. But with so many people involved, some with dishonest hands, someone grew envious and stole the hairpin. The hairpin was valuable, and the prince's wife reported it to the Duchess, who flew into a rage and ordered a thorough investigation. I and 3 other maidservants were chosen to help move things and had entered the storeroom, making us the prime suspects. I was terrified and immediately knelt down. Lady, I know nothing about this. How dare I steal the crown prince's wife's dowry? Tell me, where were you yesterday? Yesterday, I was on leave and stayed in my room the whole time. Oh, I did go to the garden for a while, but it was only for about an hour. I said. Do you have any witnesses? Yes. I hurriedly replied. The sisters in the room saw me in the house. And as for the garden, Si-min saw me. There were witnesses inside the house. But on the way to the garden, only Si-min saw me, and we made eye contact. However, Si-min said, "I didn't see anything." I looked at her in disbelief. Si-min, why are you lying? She remained expressionless. I didn't see anything. This was impossible to clear up now. Take her away and beat her to death, the old woman ordered. Lady, please see clearly. I quickly thought of a plan and knelt in front of the Duchess, raising my head so she could see my face clearly. Lady, do you remember me? I am the daughter of the Marquis of Chongping. With the help of the torchlight, the Duchess looked at me for a long time and finally recognized me. I pointed to Si-min beside me and said, "Look at her. She is my sister." Si-min. The Duchess of the State was startled and finally recognized Si-min's face. Si-min also grew tense. Madam, my sister Si-min is of noble character, as pure as a chrysanthemum, and unworldly. You have seen her with your own eyes and know her virtue. Under her influence, I have also learned many truths. Though I was once born into wealth and now reduced to slavery, I have never forgotten the teachings of the sages or my sister's words. I dare not engage in dishonest deeds. Please investigate this matter thoroughly, to clear myself of suspicion. I praised Si-min highly. The Duchess had always admired Si-min, otherwise she wouldn't have chosen her as her son's wife. So it was you too? The lady hesitated for a moment, then ordered the matron to investigate further and warned everyone in the courtyard not to spread word of today's events. I had narrowly escaped disaster. After some threats and bribes, the truth was uncovered 2 days later. It turned out that a maid who had been helping in the storeroom had stolen something. When she was caught, she sought help from her close friend. Her friend shared a room with me and knew I had also been in the storeroom. She took advantage of my absence in the garden to sneak in and hide the jeweled hairpin under my bed, framing me for the crime. If they had handled it as usual, once the items were found, the master wouldn't bother to investigate further, and they could have gotten away with it by capturing and executing the culprit. But I was cunning enough to reveal my identity at the crucial moment, prompting the lady of the house to conduct a thorough investigation, which finally uncovered the truth. After everything was settled, I was released and immediately went to confront Si-min. Si-min, why did you say you hadn't seen me in the garden earlier? Si-min looked embarrassed and denied seeing me repeatedly. After I listed the facts, she stopped pretending and frowned, saying, "Who told you to bully me before? You started it. So I can't retaliate?" I laughed in anger. You got sick and suffered because of your own actions, not because I framed you. You owe me money, so I'm demanding it back. It's only fair. I just didn't help you. I never harmed you. But now you're willing to fabricate evidence to harm me. Si-min, that's easy for you to say. When I was at my most difficult time, you asked me for money and didn't give me a blanket. You were watching me die. It's all your fault. I'm just returning the favor. I was shocked and took a deep breath after a while. Very well. Si-min. So you're capable of framing people, bribing others, climbing over others to get ahead, degrading yourself to serve others, and using underhanded tactics for revenge. What was the point of pretending to be so pure and innocent before? It's disgusting. What you've done won't go unpunished. Heaven will see. And there will be consequences. After saying that, I didn't want to say more and turned to leave. From that day onward, Si-min and I became strangers. That day, when I exposed her identity in public, it was not only to save myself but also to help Si-min. Afterward, the Duchess rewarded me with 10 taels of silver and summoned Si-min several times. Si-min, having gained favor, felt as though she were bathed in spring breeze. and her status rose steadily. Rumors spread that she was to be promoted to the head maid in the Duchess's chambers. And the maids were all fawning over her. Wherever she went. She smiled sweetly and spoke in a gentle voice. It's nothing. It's all up to the Duchess. Even if I become the head maid, it won't be much different from now. Just treat me as you always have. She seemed to have returned to her days as the legitimate daughter of a marquis. Humble and calm, which earned her praise from the other maids. I watched coldly, thinking she was utterly hypocritical. Now that she was in the limelight, I couldn't get any of her glory, nor did I want any. With the previous incident as a lesson, I kept an even lower profile and waited quietly for my chance. Soon, an opportunity arose. In early April, the prince was furious because something was missing from his study. So he dismissed all the maidservants and replaced them with new ones. In my previous life, I had seized this opportunity, scheming and plotting to become one of the maidservants in the study, thereby gaining access to the prince. As a maidservant in his inner quarters, if I could serve him in bed and bear him a son or daughter, I would rise to the heavens. If the prince took pity on me, with some maneuvering, escaping slavery and becoming a free woman wasn't impossible. Min did indeed rise to power as planned, and I thought spring was finally here. But I ended up dying on the way. As soon as I entered the inner courtyard, I flattered the old nurse. Now that the study had been staffed anew, the old nurse immediately thought of me and arranged for me to be assigned to the study. I became a maid in the study not to climb the social ladder through the prince, but to earn more money. I heard that the prince is very generous with his rewards. With money, I have other options. Somehow, Min also followed me in. When the two of us met, we both froze and exclaimed in unison, "What are you doing here?" We then frowned and hummed lightly, ignoring each other. I don't believe that Min entering the study was the idea of the duke's wife. Min and the crown prince were once engaged. Now that the crown prince has just married, how could she possibly send a woman with such a complicated relationship with him into his room? Moreover, during the pearl hairpin incident, she specifically instructed that it not be disclosed, clearly intending to cover up Min's connection to the crown prince. I suspect Min must have arranged her entry through Yangxing. The price Yangxing paid must have been significant. Humph. If she dares to harm me, I will certainly seek revenge. When the opportunity arose, I met with the crown prince's wife. The crown prince's wife is ruthless, and she has a powerful old servant by her side. In my previous life, she forced Min and me into constant hardship, and in the end, I died at her hands. This lifetime, I will never get involved with the crown prince and become her enemy. Lady, I knelt on the ground. Who are you? I introduced myself. Lady, I have come today to show my face before you and tell you an important matter. Oh, speak. I told her everything about how Min and the crown prince were engaged, how the marquis's wife intended to promote her to be a senior maid in her own courtyard, but she had mysteriously ended up as a maid in the crown prince's study. The crown prince's wife remained expressionless and asked, "You said you and Min are sisters?" I hurriedly replied, "She is the legitimate daughter, while I am the concubine's daughter. Moreover, she once harmed me, so we have no connection anymore. Otherwise, I would not have come to see the lady today." The crown prince's wife instructed the maid beside her to reward me with some silver coins. The maid said, "If there is any commotion in the study in the future, remember to inform the lady." I took the silver coins and said, "I understand." After being transferred to the study, Min and I focused on our work and saw the prince several times. However, the prince was always accompanied by a senior maid, so we had to wait outside and couldn't enter the room, perhaps due to the many changes in this life and the humiliation suffered at the birthday banquet. Min no longer remained as indifferent as a chrysanthemum from her previous life. She began actively seeking opportunities to catch the crown prince's attention. Her attire was uniquely designed, far more elegant than ours. She adorned her hair with flowers and often displayed her beauty before the crown prince, reciting poetry and reminiscing about the past. Needless to say, the clothes and jewelry were undoubtedly provided by Yangxing. I wonder how Min managed to charm him so much that he was willing to do this. I even considered crowning him the Green Hat King. I secretly passed what I saw on to the prince's wife. The prince's wife came from a prominent family and was well off. She always rewarded me with silver coins. My little savings were growing steadily. Min exerted great effort to seduce him, and the prince was finally moved. One day, he summoned her to the study to speak. I hurriedly informed the others. After the prince left, the prince's wife arrived at the courtyard with her attendants, dragged Min out of the study, and slapped her several times. "Please spare my life. Madam, please spare my life," she pleaded pitifully. The prince's wife threw a pile of poems at Min. A slave girl dares to seduce the prince? What punishment does she deserve? I glanced at the papers. The poems were extremely explicit. It turned out that the prince's wife had been biding her time, gathering evidence. Seeing those papers, Min turned pale with fear. "Take her away and sell her into slavery. Make sure to find a good place," the old woman ordered. "Yes." With the evidence irrefutable, as Min was about to be dragged away, she suddenly said, "Lady, I have already become engaged to Yangxing. These poems were written for him." I was taken aback and couldn't help but admire her. In such a desperate situation, Min had come up with this clever ploy to save her life. Since she was so clever, she must surely know everything I had done for her. But why did she treat me this way? I clenched my fists in anger. The princess's wife narrowed her eyes. "Go fetch Yangxing." Yangxing quickly arrived in the courtyard. The princess threw the poems at him and asked, "Did Min write these for you?" The maid explained the situation. Yangxing had difficulty reading, but he managed to glance at them, his face turning pale then red. His own woman seducing his master, no one could tolerate that. Beside him, Min trembled all over, gazing at him longingly, just as she had when they first met, looking at him with such longing and helplessness. That single glance had been enough to make Yangxing fall for her, becoming her loyal servant. Now, seeing the same look in her eyes, Yangxing's lips trembled, and after a long pause, he finally said, "It was indeed written by Min for me." Impressive. I suddenly felt a green glow emanating from him, blindingly bright. The princess consort hummed disapprovingly but did not press the matter further. "All right. Go back and get married," she ordered. The prince wouldn't go after a woman who had already been married. Min collapsed to the ground. Yangxing knelt down and thanked her. The prince heard about what happened in the study and specifically called me in to tell him. After I finished, he asked, "Is your sister okay?" I replied, "My sister is fine for now. If the prince wants to know more about her situation, I am willing to investigate for you." The prince remained silent for a moment, seeming a bit conflicted. He had only recently married, yet his wife had caught him being intimate with another woman, leaving him feeling guilty. However, he was also concerned about Min's situation, so he gave me an ingot of silver and said, "Thank you for your trouble." "Thank you, Your Highness." After leaving the study, I rushed to the crown prince's wife and told her about it. As I had expected, she said, "He told you to report it, so just report it as it is." She also gave me a reward. Thus, I carried the silver from both the crown prince's wife and the crown prince, delivering messages to both sides, and my small treasury grew increasingly full. The crown prince's wife, Upon hearing that Si Min and Yang Xing had not yet married, grew impatient and ordered someone to select an auspicious date for their wedding. The crown prince showed no reaction. I suspected he had little genuine feelings for Si Min, otherwise he would not have remained indifferent. With this, Si Min's future was likely sealed. Marrying Yang Xing wasn't so bad. He was willing to go to such lengths for her. And if Si Min behaved herself, she could live a quiet life. Just when I thought everything was settled, on the day before the wedding, everyone stumbled upon Si Min and the crown prince lying in bed together. Si Min was clutching the blankets, looking pitiful. The crown prince was embarrassed and grabbed his hair. We little maids didn't know the details, and everyone kept their mouths shut and didn't let the news spread. The crown prince's wife was furious and asked the duke's wife to intervene. The duke's wife had no choice but to let the crown prince take Si Min as his concubine. Not even a lowly concubine. Yang Xing was sent away from the mansion under a pretext and disappeared sadly. Si Min finally got what she wanted and became the crown prince's concubine, beginning her rivalry with the crown prince's wife. During that time, although she still put on an air of indifference and non-confrontation, I could still see her pride and arrogance. Especially in front of me. She seemed eager to show off. Now, you are a slave, and I am the master, she couldn't help but say. I rolled my eyes. You're just a concubine. Do you really think you're the master now? Si Min left angrily, saying as she departed. The marquise favors me, and I had a prior relationship with the crown prince, as well as an engagement. I won't remain a concubine forever. I didn't know where she got her confidence. She used to be a lady of the marquis mansion with a good reputation, but now she was a lowly maid who had an affair with a male servant and used her wiles to climb into his bed. She wanted the duke's mansion to look up to her? She was dreaming. Even if she had no blemishes in her previous life and became a concubine, she could only barely get by with my help. In this life, she was alone and couldn't take a step forward. In our previous life, we were oppressed terribly until I protected Si Min and gave birth to the first grandson. And then our situation improved. In this life, does she have any hope of giving birth to the first grandson? I advised the crown prince's wife. Madam, Si Min was already living with Yang Xing before. If she gets pregnant, I'm afraid it will confuse the bloodline of the duke's mansion. The crown prince's wife sneered. She can forget about having children in this life. In the small courtyard, a bowl of abortive medicine was forced into Si Min's mouth. His attitude was completely different from that of the previous life. Thanks to my timely reminder, the prince's consort dealt with Si Min and felt relieved. She asked, "What do you want?" I knelt at her feet. "Lady, please allow this servant to go to the Fahua temple to attend to the old lady." "Are you sure? Are you sure?" Although the crown prince's wife didn't understand, she agreed readily. She promoted me to a first-class maid and sent me to the Fawasi temple. Only the duchess, the crown prince's wife, and the crown prince could decide whether a maid could serve the old lady. Thus, I went to serve the old lady at the Fawasi temple. I was once the daughter of an official, could read and write, and helped copy Buddhist scriptures. After half a year, I gained the old lady's trust. I was always preparing for that important opportunity. After waiting and hoping for months, the opportunity finally came at the end of the year. A distinguished guest visited Fahua temple to burn incense but suddenly fell ill, with no medicine to save him. Upon hearing this, I rushed in with the medicine. This servant has been suffering from chest pains. By chance, I met a doctor who prescribed this medicine for me. It worked for me. I heard that the lady also suffers from chest pains. Perhaps you could try it? With no other choice, the maid served the medicine to the distinguished guest. The distinguished guest recovered, and when she woke up, she asked me, "What is your name?" I knelt on the ground and said, "My name is Ceylon." I was once the daughter of the Marquis of Chongping. But after the Marquis of Chongping's mansion fell, I sold myself into slavery. Now I serve the old lady in the Duke's mansion. So you are the daughter of a noble family. The Empress Dowager sighed. Back then, the Marquis of Chongping was only dragged down by you. The Marquis of Chongping's mansion took the wrong side in a political struggle and was made an example of. But it was actually a case of mistaken identity. My father's side was connected to the Empress Dowager, which is why I tried so hard to get close to her. In my previous life, the Empress Dowager died suddenly of a sudden illness at Fahua Temple. It was a big deal, and I always kept it in my heart. So every step I took in the Duke's mansion was calculated for this purpose. Si Min wanted to be a concubine, but I wanted to escape slavery and settle down. Your Majesty's decision is not wrong. It's all my father's fault for acting rashly. I dared not blame the royal family. Sighing, the Emperor has been sufficiently merciful, merely confiscating our property and exiling us while sparing our lives. We should be grateful from the bottom of our hearts. Do you truly think so? The Empress Dowager asked. I replied, of course. The Empress Dowager did not intervene to save you. Do you not blame her? I shook my head. How dare I blame her? For the past few years, I have been a slave and a maid, and it was only when I came to the Duke's mansion that I realized how difficult it is to manage a mansion. If the back courtyard is so difficult to manage, how much more difficult must it be to manage a country? The disposal of the Chongping Duke's mansion was already the result of the painstaking efforts of His Majesty and the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager was very satisfied with my answer. Now that I didn't know her identity, I was able to say this. And she was very moved. We chatted for a while. I had already learned about her preferences, so I said things that made her very happy. After a while, she summoned the old lady of the Duke's mansion and announced her identity as the Empress Dowager. Since your maid saved me, I must reward her according to the rules of reward and punishment. She said, starting today, remove her from the slave registry and let her leave the mansion. The old lady hurriedly agreed. Thank you, Empress Dowager. I knelt down in surprise. The Empress Dowager's orders were swift, and soon the official documents arrived. Seeing the status of a free citizen on the papers, I was so overcome with emotion that I burst into tears again. Before leaving, the old lady, delighted by the Empress Dowager's praise and my diligent service over the past half-year, presented me with a pair of jade bracelets and 100 taels of silver. Smiling as she said, may you live a good life from now on. Thank you, old lady. I quickly accepted the gifts. With the small savings I had been keeping and this unexpected fortune, I was now considered a wealthy person. After leaving Fahua Temple and returning to the capital, I bought a small house and redeemed the sisters who had been kind to me from the brothel. Fortunately, their prices were not high, and there was still some silver left over. If possible, I most wanted to save my grandmother. Unfortunately, she had already died from coughing up blood on the day our family was raided. I took the remaining money and traveled everywhere, arranging matters for my father and brothers. My father didn't particularly like me, and I didn't feel much affection for them either. But in this world, men are the masters. And without a man in the family, or if the man has committed a crime, a woman is always looked down upon and finds it difficult to survive. If others knew that I had money and there were no men in the courtyard, I would sooner or later be kidnapped. So I simply gave the rest of the money to an official who was a friend of my father. It had been 2 years since the Chongping Marquis mansion was ransacked, and the rumors had died down. So the officials dared to submit a petition. The incident back then was very confusing, and His Majesty was angry and ordered the ransacking of the mansion. Now that time had passed. He probably regretted it. It was likely that the Empress Dowager mentioned again how I saved her at the Fahua Temple, prompting the Emperor to order my father and brothers to return to the capital. Upon hearing the news, My sisters and I clung to each other and wept bitterly. 3 months later, my father and brothers returned. My father was old and frail, and my brothers were emaciated from hardship. My second and fourth brothers and my youngest brother had died during their exile. My stepmother and grandmother had died, and my aunts had been expelled from the mansion. The mansion was in ruins, and it was a scene of utter desolation. But those who were still alive had to go on. His Majesty summoned my father, restored his title, and returned the mansion to him. We moved back to the Chongping Marquis mansion. My father's official position was higher than before. My eldest brother also became an official, and my third brother resumed his studies, vowing to make something of himself. Unfortunately, we women had been courtesans and lowly maids, and everyone gossiped behind our backs. Whenever they heard the rumors, my father and brothers were very angry. Except for the sisters I redeemed, my father and brothers did not look for other female relatives. In their eyes, redeeming women from brothels was a disgrace to the Marquis mansion. They had already suffered enough and did not want to be looked down upon by others. They were determined to revive the mansion and would not allow any more stains on their reputation. They were cold-hearted to the others, but very good to me, except for not being able to give me the status of a legitimate daughter. I was treated much better than Si Min had been before. My father even begged His Majesty to give me a title, since my grandmother and stepmother both had imperial titles. And now that they were all dead, my father transferred all the titles for women to me. The emperor felt guilty, and since I had once saved the Empress Dowager, he agreed. At a young age, I was given an imperial decree, which was very unusual. When Si Min heard that the Chongping Marquis mansion had risen and that I had received an imperial decree and was living a life of luxury, she cried and begged to come back. At first, she was confident that she would be promoted, but after I left, she had been working as a concubine and was very unpopular, so her life was miserable. So when she heard that my father and brother were coming back, she made a fuss and wanted to go home. My father and brothers said, "Now that she's married, how can she come back home?" They rejected Si Min's letter. Si Min had already become someone else's concubine, so it wasn't appropriate for her to come back. Now her position was very awkward. The Marquis's mansion had been revived, and Si Min was, after all, the Marquis's legitimate daughter, now that she was the prince's concubine. It seemed a bit humiliating to the Marquis's mansion. Although the two families had a marriage agreement in the past, the crown prince had already married, so Si Min could not become a wife. The duke's mansion showed its sincerity and proposed Si Min as a concubine, but the result was the same as in her previous life. Si Min was proposed as a concubine, but she showed no joy. That year, she endured a life worse than death under the hands of the prince's wife. No one looked out for her, and her appearance had long since fallen into disarray. The prince did not favor her, so he turned a blind eye to her plight. After taking a potion to prevent childbirth, she could never conceive again. Desperate to survive, she even submitted herself to a servant. Every one of these incidents was a stain on her reputation. One day, as I was leaving with my maidservant, a figure suddenly blocked my path. "Ceylon, dear sister, save me." I looked closely and saw that it was Si Min. She was disheveled, her face pale and panicked, with a scar on her cheek. She was no longer the elegant and dignified woman she once was. "Si Min, how did you end up like this?" I was a little surprised. "They want to kill me," Si Min cried out. "That poisonous woman, the prince's wife, ruined my face. If I stay in the duke's mansion, I'll die." I smiled. "No. They won't kill you for the sake of the Marquis's mansion. No. 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 They're afraid that the abuse they've inflicted on me will be exposed. So they want to kill me." Si Min shook her head frantically. "Ceylon, I was wrong before. Please help me. She knelt on the ground and kowtowed to me. I saw that people were looking over, so I took her into the mansion. Not long after we went inside, the crown prince and his wife rushed to the mansion, both looking tense. The crown prince and his wife didn't seem to get along very well, but they were husband and wife, so they had to protect each other. Si-min was terrified. My father returned. Si-min immediately rushed over and cried loudly, "Father! Save your daughter!" My father frowned deeply. I had already told him what Si-min had done, including how she had given herself to a servant and used all her strength to seduce the crown prince to be his concubine. My father had long since grown to despise her. I want to go back to the Marquis mansion. The people of the Duke's mansion are abusing me and trying to kill me. She pointed at the crown prince's wife and shouted. The crown prince's wife's face turned pale. I took a step forward and said, "Sister, don't talk nonsense. I was also a maid in the Duke's mansion, and I saw with my own eyes how kind the crown prince's wife treated you. The Duke's wife also treated you like her own daughter. Why are you slandering her?" "What?" Si-min was stunned and turned to look at me in disbelief. The crown prince's wife looked surprised and exchanged glances with me, then said, "Yes. I've always treated Si-min like my own sister. How could I dare to mistreat her?" The crown prince didn't say a word. Si-min was nervous and at a loss. She pointed to the scar on her face and said, "Father, don't listen to them. Look at my face. I was hurt in the Duke's mansion." I said, "That wasn't because you were clumsy and fell in the garden?" Si-min's eyes widened. I smiled and said, "You forgot? On the day the crown prince's wife's hairpin was stolen, I happened to be in the garden and saw my sister. She accidentally tripped and fell, hitting her head on a sharp corner and bleeding profusely." "You're lying." Si-min trembled all over. I continued, "My sister was so exhausted from her injuries that she didn't notice me coming. When the Duke's wife investigated, you insisted you hadn't seen me, nearly getting me into trouble." Si-min's lips trembled. Are you taking revenge on me?" I shook my head. "Sister, I can't stand you twisting the truth and discrediting the Duke's mansion." Si-min stopped arguing with me and threw herself at my father's feet. "Father, save your daughter." My father looked at her. His brow furrowed. The Si-min of today was so different from the Si-min in my memory. I bowed to my father. "Father, do you believe Si-min? Or do you believe your daughter and the crown prince's wife?" Under everyone's gaze, my father was silent for a moment, then pushed Si-min away. "Since you took the initiative to climb into bed and become a concubine, then go back and behave yourself. Your nonsense has brought shame to our mansion. From today onwards, you are no longer my daughter." Si-min would have died long ago. The crown prince and the crown princess smiled, as if they had understood something. Si-min was taken away. "Father, save me! Brother, save me!" she screamed wildly. Everyone remained indifferent. Without me or Yang Sheng, she could scream herself hoarse, but no one would save her. After this incident, my relationship with the crown princess and the dowager princess became particularly close. Let go of the malicious impressions of the crown prince's wife from her previous life and look at her from a different angle. You'll find that she isn't an easy person either. She was a proper young lady from a distinguished family. But just after her marriage, a formidable concubine appeared. How could she not be enraged and take such drastic action? Human nature has two sides, depending on one's position. The crown prince's wife treated me well, pulling me into the circle of noble ladies and pointing out that I had always been honest and polite when I was a servant in the Duke's mansion, serving the old lady. This way, some of the mud couldn't be thrown on me. A month later, I heard the news that Si-min had died suddenly. My father and brothers sighed in relief. Seeing their reactions, I felt both relieved and melancholy. yet also deeply disheartened. After their exile, my father and brother's hearts had grown utterly cold. They currently favor me only because I am useful and my reputation is spotless. If I were to fall from grace, they would abandon me without a second thought. Wouldn't they? I must secure my own future. Fortunately, I knew about my past life, so it wouldn't be too difficult. My life, my destiny, I would take control of it myself. As I stepped out of the study, filled with mixed emotions, I saw my two younger sisters standing outside. They must have heard the news about Min as well. Sister. They came over and hugged me. It's okay. I'll protect you both. I reassured them. In our family, it wasn't me who should be afraid, but my two sisters who had been bought from a brothel. They shook their heads. Showing no fear, sister. We will protect ourselves and you. If we really can't go on, we'll just leave the mansion and make a life for ourselves. They looked calm and composed, as if they didn't care about our father and brother's attitude or what everyone else was saying. Looking into their clear eyes, I felt as though I was seeing myself from long ago, wholeheartedly helping Min. A mix of bitterness, sorrow, and warmth welled up in my heart. We had grown up together, and I trusted the character of both my younger sisters. Their circumstances were far more difficult than mine, yet they could face them with strength. Why should I worry so much about myself and cause myself unnecessary trouble? With this thought, I felt a sudden clarity, and my heart grew calm. Yes, in this world, there are cruel people, but there are also those worthy of love. Everyone has two sides. Even a bad person can have a kind heart. Like Liu Chunhua. Even Yang Sheng, who couldn't read a single character and was ruthless toward others, remained unwavering in his devotion to Min, showing deep affection and loyalty. Does enduring hardships truly turn one into a heartless person? That is worth considering. I suddenly gained some insight. Treat others kindly. Stay true to your heart. Fear no hardships. And reduce greed. This is how one achieves true calmness and composure. I only need to do my best and live without regret. The end.